I'm Dawn Janice, and this is my good friend, Wendy Lee Baldwin Hargett, and we are the hosts of Lightweavings Podcast. This is where we ask that question, what has dimmed your light? And are you ready to do something about that? Some of the topics that we talk about may make you a bit uncomfortable, but there's a hint in that. That means that there's a breakthrough ready to happen for you. So let's begin. This just came up, Wendy, the topic of narcissism.
Yes. Don't you just love how different topics come up in our conversations? We just have no clue where we're going to go and oh.
Yeah, that happened within a minute of us talking. It just popped in. So that wants to be discussed today, that topic. The universe wants us to talk about it, I believe. So here we are. So you've had some experience with this, dealing with a narcissist in your life.
Yes, I have more than one. And this is something that a lot of people have experiences on, and they may not even know it. I didn't even know what a narcissist was until about 3 years ago. And a friend of mine, we were talking and the subject came up, and I said, I have no idea. Well, what I knew about a narcissist was somebody that had a high, like a grandiose sense of self. You look at somebody who's pretty arrogant, like, oh, yeah, they're probably a narcissist or whatever. But I didn't realize that it ran so much deeper than somebody just thinking that they're all that in a bag of chips. Narcissistic relationships are very damaging. And it's really challenging. I don't want to say impossible because everything is possible. I'm going to say it's very challenging to heal yourself if you are in a narcissistic relationship because you keep being in that environment. There's different types of narcissists, and I'm not a psychologist, and so I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm an expert in all the ins and outs of narcissism. Okay. I'm coming from the perspective of living within that kind of an environment. I actually talked about this briefly in one of my Facebook Lives in my Align with Joy Circle group. It was about a week or two ago, just kind of touched on narcissistic, the damage that can be done. My biggest aha when I was going through the research was I realized that my stepmother was a narcissist. Mm-hmm. And my memories of her, being very self-absorbed. It was all about her. She was the pretty one. I remember I had a foster sister who was, she said one day, I was a teenager, she goes, oh, you're just so pretty. And my stepmom got really mad and said, no, she's not. She's too young to be pretty. She goes, she's cute. Well, what she was is she was jealous. Narcissists are very controlling. They like to isolate you. They like to manipulate. That was like a really big, so many shocking aspects to narcissism is the manipulation, the gaslighting, and there's all kinds of different buzzwords around narcissism, but they can be very angry people. And as you know, if you've ever been around an angry person, when they vomit their anger on you, it hurts. The childhood saying of sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is so not true. Words absolutely positively hurt. They hurt bad, and they can go in and they can really jam up your nervous system. Whenever somebody, whether they're a narcissist or not, and they're angry and they lash out at you, they are expressing their rage, and it can stick with you for a lifetime. It can stick with you for decades until you can go in and release that trauma. And the thing about narcissists is they really don't care. A narcissist has, I don't want to say impossible, but they are really challenged with having empathy. And that was a really big eye opener, because I've talked to other people that I came to realize that would fit into that model of being a narcissist. And I would, express, well, just imagine how that other person feels by your behavior. I was like, well, how would I know how they feel? I can't tell how they feel. I didn't realize, well, a narcissist does not really have the capacity to feel or imagine what somebody else feels like. So they really are not aware or I don't even know if they necessarily care how their behavior affects you because they're not willing to put themselves into your shoes. And when you put yourself into somebody else's shoes, that's emotional intelligence right there. So they're lacking emotional intelligence.
Mm. Yes. Oh my gosh. So much to unpack there. And I'm sure some of you listeners and YouTube watchers out there are seeing the points. You're putting pins in certain qualities right there. And you're like, yes, 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 yes. Maybe it's the relationships, it's the romantic relationship that you're in right now. Or maybe it is a quote unquote friend. Maybe it is an extended family member, a parent. I can put a pin in most of those, in fact, all of those qualities in one person, for one person in particular, who's been in my life a very long time. And gaslighting is one of the terms that I would like to unpack a bit further, Wendy, if it's all right with you. To me, from what I've looked up, for example, and how it's been explained to me is gaslighting is actually a movie. It's an old movie about a man that was trying to convince his wife that she was insane.
Yeah.
And that things that she saw and felt and heard weren't real.
Yeah.
They didn't really happen.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that in my life with this one particular person in my family over and over again in my life. I've never thought I was insane. I won't go that far, but it's had me questioning my own sensibility and my own emotions and reality a few times until I've realized later in life, not too long ago, that that is gaslighting. That is a narcissistic quality. All the other pins that you mentioned fit with this person as well. And so all of a sudden I can see it. And once you know it, you can't unknow it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're spot on. Yeah, gaslighting is taking something and making you wanting them to believe that you were wrong. Yeah, you're crazy. No, that isn't what I said at all. This isn't really what happened. Yes, it's like whatever label we'll say of narcissist they are, because like I said, there are many different, degrees or whatever you want to call it in narcissism, different types. They all gaslight. At least that's my understanding. Every single one of them will gaslight. And, that gaslighting is a form of manipulation. And like I said earlier, they're very, very good at manipulation. What it does is when they gaslight you, it starts to make you question yourself.
Mhm.
Was there something really wrong with me? Did I really misinterpret something? Did I really mishear something? Am I really the crazy one? And it's good that you didn't fall into and accept that as your truth. It's easy to fall into that though and accept that as truth, that yeah, you were wrong and that other person was right. Another quality that we'll say of a narcissist is they are prolific liars.
Mm.
And yeah, they will take something, well, first, flat out lie,
Mm.
and have no regard for their lying, feel really good about themselves. Or they can take something and really
Mm.
twist it around and turn it into a lie. I remember, you know, I'll just go back to the first person that I was talking about, and I don't want to be, bashing her. We've done a lot of forgiveness work, moved on, but a spade is a spade. Uh, you know, t when I'd say when I ended my relationship with my stepmother, I was an adult and I was somewhere around 40 years old. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified of this woman still at that age.
Yeah.
I mean, I was still being picked on. I was still being criticized. I was still being insulted. I was still being belittled. And it was my inner child, that didn't have the strength to stand up to this bully. I mean, that's one thing about narcissists is they're bullies. just flat out. Can't candy coat it. But I was seeing a therapist at the time, a social worker, a wonderful lady named Rita, and she helped me do what we called a divorce. I divorced my stepmother, and I put everything in writing. And I still have a copy of the letter. And the reason I put it into writing is this way you cannot mix up my words, because that was classic. You would say something, and then your words would be construed, turned around, used against you,
Right.
totally taken out of context,
Yes.
and making you be the bad person.
I love that idea of putting it in writing, because there it is in
Yeah.
black and white, concrete proof.
Yeah.
Documented.
Yeah. 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 Being in a narcissistic relationship will absolutely destroy your sense of self-worth. And here's the thing is, as an adult, it's easy to get into a narcissistic relationship for a couple of reasons. One, if that's what you were raised in, and that's what you know, and that is what is familiar to you. So, as crazy as it sounds on a subconscious level, it feels right. It feels safe, you know.
And it's not at all.
Yeah.
It's not safe at all. If you're used to
No.
not feeling safe, you go to what doesn't feel safe because you're used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it sound like
And
I'm speaking from experience?
yeah, exactly. Speaking from experience. So, you can get into the relationships if you're raised by a narcissist. And also, it's interesting when I was doing just like binge learning about this kind of stuff, is people that would be considered highly sensitive people tend to be drawn to narcissists. Narcissistic people are drawn to highly sensitive people. For one thing, they, can already have a little bit of self-esteem issues, whether you realize it or not. And also, narcissists are attracted to strong women. If you're a narcissistic man, I mean, believe it or not, they're attracted to strong women. And this is just my speaking. I have not heard this necessarily from a therapist or anything, but my perspective is they like a good challenge. And who better to try to conquer than a strong woman?
Yes, I hear that. I am agreeing with you 100% on that one. Seen it over and over again. And once they've conquered the challenge, then the truth comes out about who they are.
Yes, and they're very good about hiding who they are. Until here's a couple other little red signs about narcissist that I found really interesting. Is let's use a relationship example. If a narcissist is more than likely going to want to lock you down in a relationship quickly. They don't want you to get away. So we're talking, oh, I love you, like within the first 6 weeks. It's like, well, how could you love me? You don't even know me. Something that I heard I find a lot of value in is you don't really get to know a person for, it takes a couple of years to really get to know a person, because especially at the beginning of relationships, people can put on a facade.
Oh, the honeymoon stage. You
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah, absolutely. They're putting their best foot forward. And a narcissist is known for love bombing.
Mm.
And if you are hungry for love, or, you got this really beautiful women, or because I mean, narcissists come in men and women, or this really hot guy, and like, oh my God, he's paying attention to me. And this person is just showering you with accolades and showering with gifts and, just making you feel like a king or a queen or a princess or whatever. That's some love bombing, because once they get their hooks in you and they nail you down, then it stops.
So narcissism is actually it is a diagnosed personality disorder
Yes.
that only a licensed therapist can diagnose somebody with.
Yes.
But as a regular person without a degree, it is good to know what those qualities are, so that we and all of you out there are aware of what's happening and the trap. It
Yeah.
literally is a trap.
Yeah.
Because a narcissist, from my experience, only cares about their own feelings, only cares about their own experiences. They don't care or are able to feel what they say or do to another human being. They don't care. They think everything is about them. The whole
Yeah.
world revolves around them, which is different than being centered in yourself.
Yes.
Completely different, not even close. One is a good thing, the other is a dangerous quality.
Yeah.
So, for example, this person I talked about earlier not only was gaslighting about things where this person was in the room with me,
Mhm.
but also gaslighting when this person wasn't even anywhere near the situation that happened. And when I would say what conversation happened with another person, she, the narcissist, would say that's not true. She never said that, not even though she wasn't in the room. I mean, it's that is when I realized, okay, something's off here. How I know what happened. She wasn't even there,
Mhm.
but yet she's saying to me and the world around me that that wasn't true, that I was lying about a situation, that I was saying something that wasn't true, that was true, wasn't true. Okay, I know I'm kind of rambling here without saying the person's name, but that's for a reason. It this person, the narcissist doesn't care about my feelings. They don't care about my reputation. They don't care about how it's going to affect me for the rest of my life. I was a child when this happened, or a young person when this happened. They can't see past their own bubble. They don't care about others. They care about themselves. They may act like they care about others so that they can create a facade.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Excuse me, a facade. Yeah. It's like they're a fake person, fake
Mm,
personality. Yeah.
yes. So now that we have some ideas of what a narcissist acts like, what they do, um, the kind of world that they create, and how they can rope you into a relationship, once we see and know, once you hear this broadcast, everybody out there, now you know, you can't unknow. What do we do? What do we do? If we are in, let's say we're married to a narcissist, or we have a good friend that's a girlfriend, for example, for between you and I, a girlfriend that's a narcissist. So in a relationship, what do you do? With a friendship, what do you do? With an extended family member, what do we do? How do we get healed from this? And how do we treat this narcissistic person?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And that's going to vary from person to person, situation to situation. But we can definitely, as you say, unpack some of this and come up with some different ideas for different situations, like you mentioned. As far as a girlfriend that is a narcissist, let me ask you, is that person really a friend?
I would say no.
Yeah.
I would
So,
say that I would be in her life as part of her facade.
yeah, because you are this amazing being of light. And so she's getting more out of the relationship than you are.
Hmm. I would, my tendency would be once I realize what's happening, I would exit stage left and just be done.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell you, it can be challenging to leave a narcissist. They can beg and plead and love bomb and do all kinds of things to try to win you over. They can say, oh, I'll change. And maybe they will make a little bit of change, just enough to give you hope. And that is a repeating pattern
Mhm.
because what they do is they string you along. So, yeah, a girlfriend is pretty, it's not easy, but it is easier to sever a relationship with a girlfriend than it is with a family member or with your partners for sure. So, yeah, you're can ask yourself if you're hanging on to that relationship, like if you're feeling any kind of guilt or whatever about hanging on to that, you can go in and ask yourself, what is it that's really going on inside of you that you're not willing to let go? And why are you letting this person stay in your life and to wreak havoc in your life? So it's a good opportunity to do some really beautiful self-exploration. As far as a family member, that can be really challenging. If you can set up your life, especially as an adult, set up your life to where you have minimal interaction with that person. It doesn't do any good really to go up and say, hey, you're behaving this way. I don't like it, because they're not going to say, yeah, you're crazy. There's nothing wrong with me. It's you, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, my thoughts on that are just do the best that you can to be solid in who you are, and to do the best that you can to not let that person affect you emotionally, and just keep everything light as possible between you and as seldom as possible. If you can, if it's a situation that you can completely disconnect from this person, then absolutely go to that extreme too. But, I know that there are cases where people just don't have, or feel like they don't have that option to completely, disengage. I mean, it could be your mother-in-law, it could be your father-in-law, your sister-in-law, whatever.
Yeah.
Could be your sister, and you've got nieces and nephews that you want to stay connected to. It could be all kinds of things. And so what's really important in all of these situations is just being really solid and secure in yourself and having your own boundaries and your own self-worth.
I think you
Yeah.
just said it all right there. What do I need? That's what we have to ask ourselves. What do I need? Is this serving me in a positive way, or is it hurting me more than it is serving me? And if that's the case, set a big boundary.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
your bubble. This is your life. And if somebody is damaging you by making you feel less than because they have to be everything, then they shouldn't get to play in your sandbox anymore.
Yeah. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed. And when it comes to a committed relationship, especially if you're married, if you're just living together, I mean, there can be a lot of red tape with that. But if you're in a marriage, it can be a lot trickier, a lot more delicate. There are a lot of narcissists out there that become violent when their partner tries to leave. I've read uh, lots of stories of women who have stood up to their husbands and say, I'm just not going to take this anymore, and they have been physically abused. There have been women that have been killed. I mean, that's to the extreme. Narcissists do not like for anyone to leave them. They are afraid of being alone, and they will, sometimes they can be unpredictable. So you would need to know your situation. And if it's an extreme situation, you might need to bring in support. You might need to work with a therapist or somebody that can really guide you through that process. If need be, you might even need to call in the police to, help you to get your stuff out of the home. But those are really extreme situations, but they are possible.
Well, it
It,
sounds like it's really good to be proactive if you have any kind of fear that's coming up over leaving or ending a relationship. Trust your fear, trust your gut.
Mhm.
Fear is not your friend, fear is your enemy, but trust your gut about a concern, and then being proactive and talking to somebody that's an authority figure about it, whether it be the police. I would say start with a therapist for
Mhm.
because getting police involved sometimes can be almost dangerous at times. So not to put the fear in anybody out there, but I mean, it is good to be proactive before you leave.
Yeah, it really is. And if your partner is not to that extreme, you know, just hold your boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and just be prepared to have the wrath of, you know, whoever, the wrath of this person just spewed all over you, because they more than likely will, rage all over you, and know that it's going to happen. more than likely. It might not, but more than likely. And just be very, just get yourself really prepared, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, and hold your ground and be prepared for all kinds of different ways of them wanting to put you down, you
Cruelty,
know?
cruelty. I've seen a lot of that happen.
Yeah, a lot of cruelty.
Words or good
Yeah,
riddance. I never wanted you anyway. I mean, just
yeah,
meanness.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Remember, they don't care about your feelings. They will use any tool that makes them feel better about themselves.
Yeah, yeah, because they know down deep in their heart and their soul that they have not been a good partner. And but I I heard this really great analogy of a narcissist like recently. It's like a and we're talking about in the perspective of a relationship. So your partner is like this naughty little boy or naughty little girl who's misbehaving all the time, causing havoc, but they want mommy to still love them or daddy to still love them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can act out and be as monstrous as they want, but they expect you to still hang in there as the mommy or the daddy because they have mommy and daddy issues, mommy or daddy issues, or both. And they just think that you should still just love them no matter what. And when that reality that they're going to be abandoned hits them, that's when, all hell breaks loose. So that's why it's really important to get really clear on what it is that you desire out of life. Do you really want to stay in this kind of a relationship? What are you getting out of this relationship? What are you afraid of happening if you do stay in this relationship? What are you afraid of happening if you get out of this relationship? You just got to do a lot of internal work and get really secure. And when you make that break, stick to it.
Definitely. I've seen a lot of people go back, keep going back,
Yes.
and then the damage gets worse. And
Yes.
it's not going to get better. It's just
No,
not.
no.
Another thing that I've noticed from people that I suspect have a narcissistic disorder is that they really don't want to be truly, quote unquote, seen. They don't want others to see them who they really are. They kind of shy away from even photographs or social media or something that could make them more transparent. Afraid to be seen.
That's a really good point. They don't want to be seen that way visually. And then there are those that do want to be seen, like, look at me, look at me. But the underlying is they don't want their true, authentic self to be seen.
That's exactly right. Yes. Yes. And I think there is extremes and there's, narcissists are diverse and they're
Yeah.
and how they come across in the world, but it's either way, it's narcissistic, either end of the spectrum, or it could be
Right.
in the middle as well. All right. So that's the relationship, the extended family member, and the friendship. Now, how do we heal from being treated badly by a narcissist? What are some of the things that we encounter, some of the feelings that come up for us, some of the identity issues that we have after being maybe raised by a narcissist or in a marriage for a long time with a narcissist? What does that look like and how do we heal it?
It can absolutely destroy your sense of self-worth. So you want to go in and heal your sense of self-worth, your sense of value. You want to heal your sense of safety in this world because whenever you are with a narcissist, they get angry. That anger can come out of nowhere. You don't know what version of that person is going to show up. They can start off being really sweet and kind, and then boom, they rage on you. And what that does is it really fries out your nervous system. So, and that makes you to feel unsafe in this world. So you need to go in and heal your sense of safety. Heal your identity. Who are you? Heal the part of you that believed that you deserved to be treated less than, with respect and love and compassion, you know? because you wouldn't be with that person unless there was a part of you that felt that you deserved, or, you were less than or unworthy, or however you want to phrase it. Because if you were feeling really confident in who you were and really solid in who you were, there's no way in the world you would hook up with somebody that was going to try to control you.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like a lot of people that were raised by a narcissistic parent, or even sometimes there's two of them, but
Yep.
one, uh, like we said earlier, tend to just go to that place in the next relationship, which would be, their romantic relationship.
Hmm.
That's uh, as could be almost as intense as your parent relationship with the
Oh.
child. And that is, once again, because that's what it's a comfort zone that's not comfortable. It's what
Hmm.
we're used to. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, this feels like home. Well, yes, because it's dangerous there. And so many people, I know a lot of people that have just felt unsafe their entire life because they went from the unsafe home environment to the unsafe marriage, and stayed married because that's what they had. That's what they do.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
what,
Eddie says to do.
yeah, exactly. That's all that they know because they don't know any better, and it's not their fault. It's just not.
And I feel bad for generations before us that didn't have the information that we have on these types of things. And it wasn't as, if it was out there, it wasn't so readily available as it is now in our digital age. So the abuse that must have happened over generations of people that I knew and loved as a child, that the things that were happening, it's really sad, but we don't have to live like that anymore in our society now. We don't have to. This information is available. And that's why our world is changing. That's why families look different. That's why we are becoming much more aware and understanding of things like narcissistic abuse.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, back when we were growing up, you got your information from an encyclopedia that was printed, what, 5, 10 years previously, and you had to go to the library, or buy some encyclopedias from the person that was knocking on your door selling encyclopedias. And before that, it was even harder to get information. Today, everything is at our fingertips. And a lot of what I learned and was able to understand and put words to was thanks to YouTube, you know, because I like one of the first videos I watched was on the mother-daughter relationship, like daughters who were raised by a narcissist, and it's like, oh my goodness. Spot on, bing ding ding
Oh,
ding ding ding
yeah,
ding,
yeah.
and so if it wasn't for today's social media, yeah, you're right. And also, back in the day, even like when you and I were growing up, there was a lot of stigma around divorce. And
Yeah.
so men, because men can marry narcissistic women, women can marry a narcissistic man. It's a two-way street. You didn't necessarily, if you got a divorce, I mean, there could be a lot of shame attached to you.
A lot of
It's like, oh yeah, you got to work it out. You're married for the long haul. You said a vow till death do you part, and there's obligations, and how dare you shame the family in this? And to thank goodness today, there isn't that same level of shame. There's a bigger understanding that things sometimes just don't work out, and that's okay. I think that there is still a little bit of stigma to that, but we're growing more and more out of it. So things have definitely changed. We are in an incredible time and space in the evolution of humanity of so much information. We don't have to be the way we were before. We don't have to be the way our ancestors were, and we get to be happy.
Yes. Yes, we get to be happy. Yeah, back in the day too, and my parents were divorced when I was 14, and I was the oldest of five in a small town in North Dakota. And talk about shame for
Yeah.
the children. So it wasn't just the parents, it was the children. We felt the shame of having a quote unquote broken family.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, thank goodness we know better now. And not that it's a wonderful thing to get married, have children, and then get a divorce and then have to deal with all that. It's not a positive thing. It's just not. But if we can, sometimes we just have to break it off if it's
Mhm.
just not working. And it takes time to get to know people. Like we were talking about, there's that honeymoon phase. There is that, first few years of marriage, and then there's the facade. And then also it's not just the facade. Maybe people just grow apart.
Mhm.
People just grow up,
Yeah.
or they learn things that they didn't know about before, and their interests are going down different roads. There's lots of reasons for it. It's not just huge abusive things. It's not just narcissistic relationships that people get divorced, but I I really believe this concept, or this personality disorder of narcissism, needs to be understood more. It's
Mhm.
not just such a light term. Like we hear it used very lightly. It's something to take very seriously, and it is an actual disorder.
Yeah.
And it's become very, very obvious in this day and age. We see, even some very, very famous people that are
Yes. Any
narcissistic
politician? Yeah. Yeah.
and manipulative,
Yeah.
and all those things. It's become really obvious to a lot of us that are paying attention and care to know about it.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for your insight on this and the information. And it is good to do more research on it for those of you that are out there listening. Like we've been talking about, we can learn a lot through YouTube. YouTube it's a free service. You don't have to pay for the paid version of it. You can watch a commercial and skip through it if you want to. But there is a ton of information out there on narcissistic disorders from actually qualified therapists and psychologists. So do your research, fact check things, and remember that there is a difference between being self-centered and centering in yourself and living a life based on what you want. That's different than being a narcissist. It's a completely different thing. So don't get the two confused. Do look at all the qualities, and don't just say, oh, she wants to, if you're a guy out there listening, and or another woman, and you have a relationship with a woman, oh, she wants to pursue that career. She's a narcissist because that's all she's thinking about right now. That's not the same.
Right.
Not the same. So, any other words of wisdom on this subject of narcissism? I know that we could talk about this forever. Like there's so many examples that we have.
Yeah, that's very true. I would say, just start becoming aware. And if this is a brand new concept to you, like you say, do more research out there. There's a lot of really great research out there. And if you find yourself that you are in a relationship, a lot of soul searching, and know that a narcissistic relationship is an unhealthy relationship. If you really want to be happy and live your joy, you're not going to find it in a narcissistic relationship. So be brave enough to do whatever it is that you need to do to take steps forward to uh, be able to step into your joy. And that will more than likely mean severing a relationship, however you need to do so. And if you need help with that, absolutely reach out and get help. We've talked about having a therapist help you. You and I do healing work. And so, people can always come to us to help with that, the self-esteem and all that as well. So yeah, you don't have to do this alone. It can be really scary. It can be really overwhelming. It can be so enlightening. It can actually be very empowering when you understand the situation. So
Yes.
go
Yeah.
empower yourself. Yeah.
I found it empowering when I
Mm.
realized, when I understood that this is a thing, this is a real thing, and what gaslighting is, and all these things. I had to look up the definition, I had to do the research. But once I see it, it is very empowering to
Mm.
understand that, that's the other person's issue.
Yeah.
I've also understood that, like you mentioned earlier, to confront a narcissist with the fact that they're a narcissist, no good. It will do no good. So just don't even open up that can of worms. You know, just take it as information, make a decision about your life, and move forward that way. That
Yeah.
the last thing I have to say about that. So
Yeah, I do want to add one more thing, is to know in your heart and your soul that it's a narcissist behavior and their treatment towards you. It's not about you. It's about their wounded self. They want to make anything bad to be about you. That's because they're trying to transfer their pain and suffering onto you to make
yeah,
themselves feel better.
I would say that a narcissistic personality disorder is one of the most extreme cases of insecurity that I've learned about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Wendy, this has been a great subject. I don't know how long we've been talking, but it doesn't feel like it's been very long
I
because
know. No clue.
subject is so interesting. So if any of you would like to learn more about this, feel free to reach out to Wendy and I. Our contact information, our websites are below, and we have free Facebook groups as well. Follow us there. You can reach out to us on Facebook, but we're here for you. We also have a few published, we have things that are published out there. Wendy's got a book. I've got a workbook slash guided journal out there, and more books coming. So stay tuned for that. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Wendy. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, everybody. You take care. Always remember that you're loved and that you matter. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.